Hello and welcome to this week's program of the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. Each week we connect with and hear from fascinating and inspirational speakers, often with a message focused on our interests in innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. As a Rotary Club, we look for ways that these programs might foster new approaches to improving communities near and far. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the program over to Rushton Hurley, who will introduce our participants and our speakers. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. First, thank you to Cecilia. Cecilia is a longtime Rotarian and member of our club, a guru in the Rotary Foundation front. And thank you very much for hosting today. We also have with us in Canada, under about 55 feet of snow or something like that, Chris Cochran, right? A film producer extraordinaire who has incredible credentials, in a long series of wonderful accomplishments. Well done, Chris. And in Central America now, our world traveler Cviatko Shidorov, who has made all kinds of great things happen with our club through the Coffee with the Rotarian program, and just general, totally reliable volunteer. My name is Rushton Hurley. I am the programs chair, and I am excited to introduce our speaker, Danielle Bastardo Blanco, who is a PhD candidate in Integrated Biomedical Sciences program of the University of Tennessee Health Science Center in Memphis. He's going to tell us about his Rotaract experiences, but quickly about his work. He's at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. That's where he is receiving his doctoral training. And he's focusing on immune signaling and cell metabolism and the differentiation function of T cells, a specialized group of cells of the immune system. While he was in college, he started 2 Rotaract clubs, one in New York, another in his hometown in Venezuela, and was in 2013 named Rotaract District 4370 Rotaractor of the Year. He's passionate about service. He's actually working on establishing a nonprofit, and we're excited to have him. So, Daniel, I hand it over to you. Thank you for being a part of our meeting this week.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So let me just get my presentation started here. Okay, can you see it fine? Okay, good. Well, hello everyone. Yes, as I was introduced, my name is Daniel Bastardo Blanco, and I'm from Venezuela. And today what I'm going to be talking about is how my experiences through Rotaract really changed my life and really allowed me to become who I am, and why the things that I do are so interrelated to service and to, I would say, social entrepreneurship. So to begin with, so I wanted to show where I am from. I'm from Venezuela, which is obviously a country in Latin America, and I'm from this very little city in the northeast of the country called Cumaná, which is actually the very first city founded in the American continent. It was founded in 1515, so we just actually celebrated a couple of years ago 500 years of foundation. It's a beautiful city where it's always summer and it's always warm, and I most certainly miss the beaches very much. But it was in Cumaná when I was in my last year of high school where I actually learned about Rotary and Rotaract. Back then, when I was trying to decide what to do next with my life and what to study in college, I got involved into the scientific project of studying how what was the incidence of cleft lip and cleft palate in Sucre State, because it actually has surprisingly a very high incidence of these cases. And because of this, we receive year after year missions from Rotary to do surgery to our kids for cleft lip and cleft palate. And that was when I got involved with Rotaplas, where I actually served as a translator in the operating rooms for quite a few of their sessions, at least 3 or 4, actually no, 5. 5 of them, where I was in the operating room all week long, pretty much from 8 a.m. until, 7 p.m., 6 p.m., just working with the surgeons and with the nurses and all the interdisciplinary team, trying to help them communicate. Because what is really quite wonderful about these experiences is that it is very interconnected. We have medical doctors from all over the country coming to Venezuela, and they're working with the Venezuelan nurses. And likewise, we have plastic surgeons from Venezuela working with the international nurses and the team and the dentists and everybody else. So there really is a need for translation and for communication, because none of them are bilingual. And that's kind of what I did with them, with a group of other friends also. So this was a very life-changing experience for me. Just seeing how the work of Rotary and the work of service actually changes life, and it really brings hope to the kids. And that was that when I got involved with this was really my last year of high school. Then I took a year off between high school and college to learn English because I was planning to come to the US to do my undergrad. And I went to Elmira College in upstate New York, where it was not very much like Cumana. It was super cold. There was tons of snow once winter arrived. That was the very first time in my life that I actually saw snow. But it was quite truly wonderful experience. And just a fun fact about Elmira is that it's the same place where Mark Twain wrote many of his stories, which is actually in upstate New York. So we have a little Mark Twain study there that is super popular and visited by many tourists all throughout the year. And all the books, the big famous books from him, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, were all written here. So Elmira really has a very strong passion for writing. And more important than that too, this was a college founded in 1855 and is considered the very first college to grant degrees to women the same way as they were given to men. So quite a great place to be, at least for me. But they didn't have any club related to Rotary, even though there were multiple Rotary clubs within the community. So I decided, well, the way it happened is that it was one day I was walking through campus and I saw this person wearing a Rotary pin. And I was like, oh, you are a Rotarian. I want to meet you. I'm really, I told him about my experiences with Rotary. And so it happens that he was actually one of the vice presidents of the universities, and I didn't know. He was the dean of finances, and he was the president-elect for the Rotary Club of Elmira. And he really encouraged me to start a Rotaract club. And so I decided to take the challenge and did it. And actually, I was quite young there, and you probably all know about Rotaract. It's a service club for young professional science students ages 18 to 30. And when I had this idea of starting the Rotaract club as I was 17. So actually I had to wait a little bit before I could actually get my club started because I was not just of age for Rotaract. But once we started it, by the end of my freshman year, and certainly on my sophomore year, we started with a group of 15 students from all over the world who were studying at Elmira, of course. And yeah, and that's how I actually learned about Rotaract, because even then I didn't really know much about Rotaract. And many of the events that we did was focused on the End Polio Now campaign, where we raised tons of money for the End Polio Now campaign. And we did a lot of awareness campaigns through these posters that I show on the slide, where we had all of our members doing this type of wear this close to ending polio, but we also gather all the like superstars from the college. So all of our hockey players, cheerleaders, basketball players, people who were involved in many clubs, the presidents, the dean. So we pretty much, wherever you walk on campus, you could see a poster of someone that you recognize on campus telling you a little bit about the End Polio Now campaign and how Rotary really is changing the world through the End Polio Now campaign. And besides that, the other, I think, greatest accomplishment that we had there is that we planned a trip to Mexico, where we were there for a week, just doing not only community service there, but also having quite a big of cultural exchange between our Rotaractors and the Rotaract Club that was hosting us there. So there were 5 of us who traveled there. And here in the picture, what you see is one of the orphanages that we visited. And we brought to them, to all the kids, a little bag from our college full of school supplies. And again, this was quite a wonderful and powerful experience, because we visited them the very first night, well, the second night that we got there to Mexico. And then two nights later, we went back to the orphanage to like play with them and work with them. And to our surprise, by then they were already using all the supplies that we were giving them. So we needed some papers to do some writing, and immediately they just brought us the Elmira notebooks that we brought to them, and they already had classes on them. And that really, to all of us, it was, again, another moment where you see that the things you do actually do make an impact, and people do really need this type of love and exchange. And many of our members then remain in exchanging communication with these kids once we went back to Elmira. And we brought all the information back to Elmira, and we had a lot of, awareness campaign. Then I graduated from Elmira in 2012 with my Bachelor of Degrees of Science. And once again, I took a year off between college and grad school. And while I was working on this Rotaract club in Elmira, I always has this idea in the back of my mind about, well, we need to bring Rotaract to Venezuela. We need to bring Rotaract to Cumaná. And when I went back to Venezuela, I realized that actually there were many clubs, Rotaract clubs in the country, at least 2 dozen of them, but none of them were in the east part of the country, most particularly in Cumaná. So I took it as a dream that I wanted to make true. And in that 1 year, then I worked on starting this other Rotaract club of Cumaná, where we started with 18 very passionate individuals who were really eager to change the world. And what was really at least fascinated with this club is that Cumaná actually is very unique because it has 4 different Rotary clubs within this small city in Cumaná. And even though we are all in the same business of doing service and collaboration, there really wasn't much of a connection between the 4 different Rotary clubs. So it was also kind of my goal to bring all the Rotary clubs together through this Rotaract club. And we actually were able to get the sponsorship for all 4 of them. And it really worked as a connection for the 4 different Rotary clubs so that they could start doing service projects together, which I thought would be more powerful for our city. So we made many different projects, specifically during the Christmas times. We went to very impoverished communities and we brought them a day with Santa where we bring gifts for all the kids and activities and events. And we visited orphanages also and nursing homes, where we went like at least once a month. The last Saturday of each month, we will go and be with these grandparents that were in the nursing homes and play with them and bring them joy and games and just happiness. And while I was there with this Rotaract club, I also had this fantastic opportunity of traveling to Argentina, where I participated in Destino Irao, which was sort of a Rotaract trip for Rotaractors where you could apply, and then you were selected, and you had this opportunity to travel with Rotaract clubs in the districts to have sort of a cultural exchange. And there I got involved, and I was one of the 6 Rotaractors selected, and they were coming from Brazil, from Peru, Ecuador, Mexico, and from Europe. And it was quite wonderful. I mean, I learned so much, and I visited so many Rotaract clubs. We were visiting 1 different Rotaract club at least 1 or every other day, and we were staying with them and just doing service with them, cultural exchange, learning about how we develop our projects, how we organize with each other, and how we can work together and improve the service of Rotaract. And then in 2013, I moved to Memphis. And that's where sort of my Rotaract story kind of breaks a little bit, because I had to, again, to leave my country to pursue my dreams of becoming a scientist. And I arrived to Memphis, specifically to the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, where I'm in the IBS program. And as Rostrom was saying, I'm in St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which is a very unique place to do science and to work, because this is the hospital. It's really a place that really takes research very seriously, and it really transformed our discoveries in the lab to the bench side. So St. Jude was founded in 1965, and since then it has really pushed the survival rates for childhood cancer from about 20% back in the 60s to over 80% nowadays. So this is a place where dreams do come true for science and for the kids and for everyone. And in particular, I work in immunometabolism, and I'm most interested in understanding the role of glycolysis in T-cell mediated immunity. So our immune system is comprised of two different types of immune system, the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. So the adaptive immune system is this one in which our body kind of has memory for the antigens that are presented to us. So once you get infected, say, by the flu, your system actually recognizes what is that virus that is infecting you, and then it mounts a response that is specific to that particular antigen. And this is all driven by a specific type of cells called the T cells. And they're called T cells because they develop in the thymus. And what we have realized in the past few years, or the past decade, is that the state of activation of these cells is highly correlated to their metabolic profile. So now we understand that it's not only metabolism that is allowing the cells to get activated, but it's actually what pushes the cells to change their activation status. So my goal for my PhD is to understand how glycolysis as a metabolic pathway actually impacts the immune response, and how we can modulate glycolysis so that we can have a better immune response, not only for viruses, but for cancer and for just any antigen that affects you. And even though I'm not involved with Rotaract at this point in my life, I still keep my involvement with my community in many different ways. So I am the president of the Graduate Student Executive Council, which I think it relates back to Rotaract in terms of professional development and community service. This is, again, a group of all PhD students who are trying to make a difference in our community. We develop projects that have positive impact in our community. And of course, we create programs to enhance our education while we are in our PhD program. And I am working, and this is kind of my biggest dream that I'm getting on right now, is in the Venezuelan Alliance of Memphis, which is an organization to bring all the Venezuelans within the Memphis community together so that we can help our community work better together, but also help the individuals who are coming to Memphis as a consequence of all the political troubles that the country is living. So just this past year, we were able to organize this Consulta Popular. Probably you read about it on the news, which was an election organized by the opposition for the Venezuelan government. And we had over 900 Venezuelans come to our center here in Memphis to vote through us. So I think I'm running out of time, but yeah, this is me. I always consider myself a dreamer, a doer, and now I'm a future PhD. And I really feel Rotaract has really allowed me to have such a diverse life, because by the different venues of service, community service, international service, and professional development, you can see that really my life nowadays, it's all the same. I'm always trying to have a positive impact in my community and trying to bring people together so that we can have a difference and make a difference in the world. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Daniel. What a great program. I think we can now go to Q&A, and if any of you would like to unmute and ask a question, I'll let you go first, because I have at least one really big question that I would like to ask. So Chris, why don't you lead off?
Well, you said at age 17, you got the itch, I call it, to start a Rotaract club. What was your motivation? Why did you want to start one, especially at that young age?
Yeah, well, just this experience that I had before with Rotaract, where I saw that Rotary could really do things and projects together that had a positive impact in the community. When I was in college, I also wanted to have that same sense of belonging, or I guess meaning, in making an impact in my community. And I felt that by building a Rotaract program in our school, we'll have a platform to be more impactful and to really touch people's life. And that's really what motivated me, so that I brought all my friends together and we developed programs that will have impact both in the local community and also international, as you saw that we went to Mexico.
Well, as a famous Memphian once said, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey, Daniel, question about the Rotaract Club you started in Venezuela, although we can also stop sharing the slides, actually, come back to the grid. That'd be
Oh,
good.
yeah, sorry. Oh,
no
thank you for reminding me.
Yeah,
okay.
Good. So when you were starting the club in New York, you had this community at your university, and it's easy to kind of connect with people in an enclosed space, in a sense, right? But when you go back to Cumaná, And how did you connect with people there? How did that interest bring people together to become a Rotaract club when you didn't have the advantage of connecting with people on a university campus?
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic question. And actually, that was one of the biggest challenges when I was trying to gather the support from the Rotary clubs, because I pretty much had to tour all the Rotary clubs and give them presentations, not only for them to know about Rotaract, but how I was going to be able to make Rotaract happen. And actually, to be honest with you, some of these Rotary clubs were not as excited as I was, because they had failed before in making Rotaract clubs happen, because Cumaná, well, being such a small city and probably it's a place where not many people stay. So many of the children of the Rotarians, they will go to the university and then they leave Cumaná. And there's people who go to the university in the area, once they graduate, they just leave Cumaná. And then it's more of like, I guess there is no they didn't see such a joint and diverse group of individuals. But I told them, if we give them a reason to stay and to believe in the goal that Rotaract does, we'll be able to accomplish it. So the way how I gather all these people, because actually not many of my friends from high school were still there, I just did a huge social media campaign where I just were posting through my social media, Facebook and Twitter, a lot about Rotaract. I went to radio stations and I got interviewed about what I was going to build. And I just made this is going to be the best thing that happened to the city. And I invited lots of people for the first informational meeting. And we had near 40 people coming just to listen to me talk about Rotaract. And out of those 40, probably around 25 who stayed around. And then once we were ready to start the chapter, which was like, I guess, maybe 6 months later after I had that very first meeting, it was 18 of us and 18 people who were really committed to making it happen and to work it. And out of the 18, if I knew before my first meeting 3 of them, it's too many. All the other were just new friends that I met because they were really excited and passionate about what we could accomplish together.
And is the club still going strong?
Yes, it's still going strong. I have lost connection a little bit with them because I'm too busy. I cannot keep up with so many things in my life. But yes, they do keep going. They still have these monthly visits to either the orphanage or the nursing homes, and they try to do as much as they can, because quite honestly, the situation back home in my country has really gotten so much more worse in so many different aspects, both socially and economically, that it's very difficult for people to invest now so much time on community service, even though now is when we need it the most. So it's kind of a balance and sacrifice that all these individuals are making just to make a difference for our kids.
That's tremendous. I love that there was this focus on using social media and getting the word out, and I think every organization needs to tell its stories if it wants to survive. And for a lot of Rotary clubs, they're doing lots of great things, but who knows, right? They don't really go to the trouble of getting messages out there and sharing them via the tools that are now available. And I think
and I agree. I think that's what we need the most for organization to strive. And I think that's something that I found out when I was going through the Rotaract campaign of bringing people together, is that people know what Rotary is to a certain level. So they see it as, I guess not to be offensive, but like a group of very impactful individuals who is kind of very difficult to get to, but they do a lot of great things. But they don't realize that this is actually a place where anybody is welcome and can do service and projects, and it doesn't matter where you come from. As long as you have this passion for service, you're more than welcome. And that's what the story that I told them, and that's how I was able to bring so much youth together that had never interacted with Rotary before.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. That's great. I have a question about your work, or your studies, as the case may be. So opening with the pictures of the cleft palate surgeries just sort of like made me come to life, because quite a few years ago, 2002, I think it was, my then club that I was in participated in a rotoplast project in Guatemala that to do cleft palate surgeries and all of that. And it's a big club, and we showed up with 42 people and wheelchairs to distribute and diapers for babies. They actually had a little Ronald McDonald type, or maybe there's some equivalent back there with the university hospital. home for the families to stay in when their children were in having surgery. But there's a very high incidence of cleft palate in Guatemala, very high. And of course, these kids are just shunted into some back corner and forgotten if something isn't done. So they have actually Mayan runners who go out into the mountains and find the kids and bring them in for the surgery. It's an amazing thing. So we love that operation, that whole activity so well that we started funding a week every year in Guatemala. The hospital was willing to participate with us. And one of the questions that is still being considered, because of course you really need really long-term studies for this, is whether the problem, because it's so prevalent in those populations, is genetic, or is it, does it come from their diet or, environmental influences? So my question to you after all that is, in your work, are you working on that as part of your immunometabolism studies?
No, unfortunately, no. And yeah, it's quite a very interesting question, because that was kind of what we were trying to get at when I was doing this high school project of surveying all these patients and all these individuals, and what we found is that, well, I mean, it was a very small scientific project to call it like that, but yes, there seems to be a genetic this predisposition for these individuals to develop or to be born with cleft lip and cleft palate, but also it's part the lack of I guess the medical checkup that the mother has to have while she is pregnant, and the different nutrients and vitamins that she has to be taking. Many of the mothers of these kids actually were not going through these regular checkups, and it was perhaps the imbalance of all the nutrients that she should have been taking what then generated this consequence of the cleft palate and lip. But now in my work, no, unfortunately, no. The lab where I am is focused just on adaptive immunity. We're just thinking about T cells and B cells and how they work and how they interact. And this has nothing to do with, human development, which is really what causes this condition. So no, but I would maybe in the future.
Well, in the end, all those elements play into it, of course. And I think in Guatemala, the government started providing folic acid supplements to all the women through the local clinics, because they figured that was a part of what was missing that might be causing this. But of course, until they have years and years and years of data, no one will really know. But anyway, that was of particular interest to me for that reason. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, there you are, Siako.
Hey guys, I have a question. Danielle, thanks so much for this nice presentation. So it seems like you've done a lot of very interesting projects. So what is next for you when it comes to Rotary and Rotaract?
Yeah, well, that's a big question. Now, because as I said, just because when I started my PhD program, really my time got super extremely limited, and Rotaract for me, once I start working on it, it's such a big passion and such a driver for my life and for my time that I really didn't have enough time to balance between the two, and now I'm trying to get back to it now that I'm kind of getting to the end of my PhD training. So I guess it will depend of where I go next after my PhD program. I'm not really sure what part of the country I'm heading, and once I get there, I'm hopeful that I'll find a Rotary club that I can hopefully join and then keep doing great things with them.
Yeah, if only there were like a really flexible way of like connecting with a bunch of dynamic people and any time during the week, and that would really be good for a Rotary club.
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry, Siako, I interrupted you.
Yeah, does anyone know of an eClub that accepts?
I was going to say that I can think of at least one. That'd be a good match for you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I am actively considering.
That's great. And one of the things, I'll give a little commercial. One of the great things about being part of an eClub is you can be part of it from anywhere in the world, which is a good thing, because when I do retire, I am planning to live somewhere else in the world, maybe everywhere else eventually. And wow. I can still be a member of this club, so for what it's worth.
Yeah. Well, I have to be honest, this has been fascinating for me to learn about you guys. I mean, Raquel, one of your members, was who invited me to be part of this and, to have this presentation. And I had never interacted with a Rotary Club before. So I am learning a lot about you and seeing how you work. And I find it very fascinating.
Great. Okay, any other questions? All right, so we would like to encourage everyone who's enjoyed this program to let us know what you think, which you can do by visiting our website, www.siliconvalleyrotary.com. Below on that site, you will find a discuss thread for sharing your thoughts and responding to comments. And Daniel, we encourage you to watch that in the week in which the program airs, and feel free to respond to the various comments there. People love to know that, they love to engage with people who are doing great things. Members and Rotarian guests, make sure that you fill out the attendance section too. It helps us know about the reach of our efforts and also serves as a makeup for a missed meeting. If you put your email address properly below, you'll get a message you can pass along to your club secretary. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Rushton and we'll end the meeting.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We love getting to share messages of innovation, entrepreneurship, and education as they relate to service. And as we always do, we want to hand it over to our speaker for the last thought.
Well, I think if I have something to say, is dreams do come true. So let's just make our dreams happen.
Perfect. We'll see you guys next week.